Welcome back to Crystal Clear! I'm Ultra Vox, and with Steven Universe Future, definitely the most peculiar villain by far shown in the opening theme song is the one front and center. Just by composition, you can tell that they're making this guy out to be a big deal. And there's already so many theories circulating on the internet on who this guy could be. And, well, just what is it? Maybe a he, maybe a she, who's to say? Some believe this to be more of a giant worm, which how I described him. Some describe them as a snake, alluding to the fact that it could be Steeple. That's a discussion for another time. And even a Reddit user, People Cheery, has suggested that this beast could be Steven Universe's take on a monster from Dungeons & Dragons. A Tarrasque, which realistically is probably the case. Like, if it ends up having legs and feet, I won't be surprised. But a popular theory that so many people have brought to my attention that I do want to throw my hat in the ring in on is the notion that this being is actually none other than Steven. That Steven will suffer from corruption and become the final antagonist of the series. I like looking at multiple perspectives. I don't want to settle for just one theory, when in reality, the universe could go with anything. So although I'm not totally on board with this theory, I still want to run through it and play devil's advocate. I want to root for why this theory could be true, and even give you guys a taste of how it could play out, and then explain why I'm not that crazy for it. Of course, spoiler warning, if you do not want to know anything about Steven's future, please, I advise you to click off now. With all that said, let's dive in. So it appears this theory originated, at least in full detail, by Tumblr user Novantium, which reads, on the corrupted Steven theory. So originally when I was mused on this yesterday, I was just playing around with random possibilities. After combing this series for info about corruption though, I mildly spook at the increased potential for this to perhaps be a thing. I'm not saying that this is what I for sure believe will happen. To be honest, I'm not even sure the universe will go this direction at all. But just for funsies, let's see what kind of evidence or foreshadowing exists that might support this potential story path in the context of canon. I honestly don't think this creature is a worm at all whatsoever. It's either more akin to a horned caterpillar or potentially has limbs. Either way, we can see so little right now that it's hard to tell. I'm not editing the rest of this post because I want it to exist in its original form, but do keep this in mind reading the rest. So diving into the theory, number 1, the design of this creature. Let's start simple. Let's start tangible. For future reference and simplicity, I will henceforth be referring to this creature as Wormy Boy. So let's see what we got here. I'm definitely not the first person to point out this fella's pink nature, and the jarringly human-like nose we've got, compared to other corruptions, which have had distinctively non-humanoid features. In the photo above, we also have Wormy Boy sporting glowing pink eyes, which then send out a flare of pink light or energy, so seemingly a powerful entity. If you watch a source 7 before they set up right, you'll see that the boy is super big. They're in the background, but boy do they loom. The shadows cast upon them especially push that sense of size. They've also got a whole bunch of spikes on their back and framing their face. So then, what evidence could be made for this being a corrupted Steven, as opposed to some other run-of-the-mill monster? Number 1, Steven Universe Future is a limited series, described as tying up loose ends. To me, as a viewer, it would make far more sense for the antagonistic conflicts to deal with big concepts that have already been established since there's such limited amount of time we have left with this world. Introducing a completely alien species in the last act of the show would feel offbeat from a both writing and a viewing perspective. Corruption, on the other hand, is something we still don't fully have answers to yet. Number 2, we don't see any gem, yes, but Steven's gem is, of course, on his belly. If this theory were to be true, that would translate to the gem being on the boy's underside, far out of sight in the shot, due to how massive they are. As in addition to this, not showing the gem gives an air of mystery to the creature's true nature, which makes it seem like there's something surprising to discover here. Number 3, a corrupted diamond would surely be massive, also very powerful. The beam of pink light hints at Wormy Boy being quite a powerhouse. Number 4, the spikes on Wormy Boy's back and around their face highly resemble rose thorns. We know how much the universe loves the rose symbolism, and design-wise, this aspect would make a lot of visual sense for a corrupted Steven. Running off of that, number 5, the face and nose shape and the 5 horns on this creature give off a very Steven-like silhouette, and they provide an image of such. Yeah, not exactly a detail that can be dismissed. The nose, of course. The face has a very Steven-like shape to it overall, though noticeably more angular and sharp. The mouth is reminiscent of the watermelon Steven's mouths. And as for the horns, there's 5 of them positioned equidistant around their face, just as Steven's hair is always formed from 5 little bumps at the same positions. Okay, moving on. Number 2, we do not understand the true nature of corruption. Corruption is still, bafflingly, a huge mystery. The gems we've watched, the crystal gems since season 1, have been healed. Yes, but there are still some gaps in our understanding of it. With Steven Universe Future's promise to address some lingering story threads, it would make sense if corruption was on the plate for further discussion. So, what do we know? Well, we know that's something the diamonds can do. Interestingly, it doesn't seem to require all 4 diamonds. 3 of them together were able to cause all the damage to Earth. There's also no statement made that more than 1 diamond is required to cause effects like that. In Lex from the homeworld, Blue and Yellow Diamond were actually aware the corruption was something that they were capable of producing. They seem to assume they obliterated the gems on Earth. Corruption is then even a mystery to them. That's odd, isn't it? That is something nearly impossible to describe. Garner goes further to say, if MC Bear didn't tear the fabric of his arm, but the fabric of his mind. Steven assumed corruption was a song. There's a lot of association between corruption and music. It causes gems to lose touch with their forms. Instead of warping into a more outwardly monstrous version of themselves that appear to be just a bundle of fight or flight reflexes and survival instincts, as seen by Centipede and Monster Buddy and Monster Reunion, it appears as if credit gems try to regenerate their original forms if unbubbled, but are simply not in a state where they can maintain that. As seen with Jasper and Earthlings, extreme emotional distress very much seems to speed up corruption's effects. This is less of a stated fact and more of a read on that episode, but I believe that to be an important tidbit, especially since Garner states that corruption's damage is mental rather than physical, at least at its core. This can be seen in Monster Reunion with how Centipedo's partial healing backfires when she remembers the trauma of being corrupted and reacts strongly. Now when it comes to healing the corruption, Sealant tries to heal Centipedo himself and does make some nice progress, hoping her regain a hold on herself as he treats her with love and compassion and understanding, but it's ultimately not a healing that can occur in isolation, helping her on his own. She needs more support before she can heal from this corruption to a state where she can truly be herself again, and that eventually comes in the form of the other diamonds. So all 4 diamonds can help relieve the corruption if they help these gems all together. So how could this theory potentially fit into the story anyways? Well, here's the part of this post where I make some broad conjectures. I am shooting fists into a barrel here because, again, we barely know anything about how corruption actually happened initially, and my thoughts are very jumbled, please forgive me. Corruption seems to be a mental element of gemkind, turned manifest, and from there we're gonna cut it off, but if you want to see the rest of the original theory, I will link it in the description. I just want to share my own thoughts. Essentially, just from a narrative standpoint, but Steven Universe as a story revolves around corruption, and Steven Universe Future is an epilogue to the original series. So could corruption put a nice bow on everything? I don't think it's impossible, especially with seemingly a brand new rebellion rising up the ranks. Let's say history is starting to repeat itself. Jasper has a rebellion, they're making noise on Homeworld, and the diamonds are having trouble holding a grip on them all. Now, according to the synopsis provided with the press release, Steven Universe Future will be about tying up loose ends, but Steven having to eventually face his own problem. Given that Sugar has teased in recent interviews that there may be a villain that Steven can't reason with, maybe the rebellion as an entity is that thing Steven can't reason with. And maybe in such a high-stakes situation like this, it's not exactly clear for our protagonist or the diamonds on what they should do. But let's say the diamonds in particular get attacked. They would naturally defend themselves. But let's just say in the heat of the moment, without even thinking, they decide to deal with this new rebellion exactly the same way they decided to deal with the last one, with corruption. It's not even something they will put much thought into. They're just pushed against a corner and they have to act, looking out for each other, but only each other. Steven, of course, wouldn't want this to happen. He wouldn't want more gems to suffer from corruption, and who knows, Jasper has already been corrupted once. Maybe if she gets corrupted again, she's stuck like that for good, and Steven wouldn't want to risk that. So Steven makes a bold sacrifice and takes the corruption hit for the rebellion, protecting them with his own abilities. Not only would Steven be making such a bold sacrifice for people who hate his guts, but it may have unforeseen consequences. Steven himself being corrupted, becoming the very thing we see in the theme song of the series. Of course, this would be interesting because they needed all 4 diamonds to heal corruption in the first place. But how can they heal Steven when they need Steven? Maybe this is where corruption's ties to a song can come into play. Steven Universe is a very musical series after all, and I can see them implementing music in such a vital moment, where Steven has spent the entire series helping other people, but now they need to help him. And with the show being built from the Steven perspective, I can only imagine what crazy things the crew could do to convey this. Maybe we'd constantly shift to our Steven Steven, trapped within his own corrupted mind, trying to figure out what to do. How can he turn back to normal? How can he heal himself? Because ultimately, corrupted or not, it'd still be Steven. There has to be something he could do to hold himself together. But on the flip side, while this is happening, we can also see corrupted Steven on a rampage, while everyone works together to save him. Think about it. Even if you're not keen on the diamond redemption, you could still entertain the concept of the crystal gems and the diamonds and even the uncorrupted gems giving their all to help Steven. But how would that be meaningful in any sort of way? Like, yeah, okay, everyone Steven impacted came together to help him. Well, they could make it work. Because should this play out, Steven's corruption would really be Steven reflecting on the fact that he wouldn't be able to get through to this rebellion, that he wouldn't be able to get through to Jasper. He'd feel like a failure. He can save the universe and change the mind of intergalactic tyrants, but he can't change the mind of a court soldier? Of course, that's greatly simplifying it, but when you're down on yourself, you're more prone to look down on your accomplishments. That's why everybody fighting to save Steven, trying to get through to him, would help him reaffirm all of his accomplishments thus far, how far he's come. Yes, he won't be able to get through to everybody. Yes, some of those threats that he won't be able to get through are bigger than others. But he would learn to accept that those people really don't matter in the long run. They can be stopped, they can be dealt with, but they don't have to end in a song and hug. And now that I'm way more into this theory than I was in the beginning of this video, I already like to argue there's a potential location already shown for where this final confrontation can take place. The Mindscape, as seen in Reunited, with a quick appearance in Escapism. If the crystal gems and the diamonds can make their way inside Steven's mind, somehow find a way into this astral plane, which might be possible through White Diamond's mind powers, then you could have everyone present without the need of breaking the Steven perspective, and to betray everybody getting through to Steven without it just being everyone standing around and talking while occasionally dodging Steven's attacks. Again, they can really go all out with this. Make it a true battle of heart and mind. I just really want to cash in on that Mindscape battle that we didn't get from White Diamond, you know? As for why I could see this theory not playing out, it just mainly deals with everything we haven't seen with Steven's physical form. For example, we know Steven doesn't poof, he's not phased by a gem destabilizer, his body is organic, and even though he is shown to be prone by some gem abilities, such as Blue Diamond's Tears or Spinel's Rejuvenator, none of that still affects his physical form. Spinel reset him back to square one, and although his powers were under threats as a result, he didn't get sent back to a baby, he didn't get sent back to Rose Quartz or Pink Diamond. Physically, he still remains Steven. Though something else people may argue is Lapis Lazuli, as she was sealed into a mirror and was unaffected by corruption, and the process of making Steven, and by the setup of Steven's body, it kinda plays by similar rules. But Steven is sentient, he's tangible, he's able to grow. He even has his own variation of shapeshifting, whereas Lapis was within a non-sentient, non-organic mirror, something that wasn't able to change and grow. So in those regards, I believe corruption is still on the table. Although yes, that's something I rather would leave in the past. Sure, we don't know every nook and cranny behind corruption, but I feel like the show also gave us enough to infer. I kinda think that angle was just so when the diamonds did give in to Steven, it wouldn't be a pill that was completely hard to swallow, as they would be able to own accountability for an action that was the driving force of the series. But considering those are the only reasons I wouldn't be for this theory, I still wouldn't completely discount it. Truth be told, another reason why I'm not completely feeling it is just because I'm not sure what this thing could be. Steven Universe is so unpredictable, and something we have to keep in mind is that they do express future isn't the same as the original series. They are two separate chapters, even though one spans for 5 seasons and one seems to only be 1 season. But as ENJQ stated in the Change Your Mind podcast back in January, Change Your Mind was the end of this version of Steven Universe, and that what comes next is something new. I just mentioned that because a lot of people feel that if this being is a different alien entirely, it may be too soon to introduce in the last season, or at least at the end of the show. But considering they're playing future as its own thing, would it be out of the question to introduce something new? And could the Crewniverse make it work? At this current point in time, it's not publicly available how long this series is. But I feel like if they just gave it the length of a normal season, they'd be able to pull it off, as long as it's timed well. The thing about the original series when you look back on it, is that the original Steven Universe saved things for the beginning, middle, and end for their seasons. So the introduction of some elements feel like they'd be rushed if they were introduced in future because we were used to such a slow burn before. But consider how many gems and concepts can get established in just 1, 2, or 3 episodes, maybe in a 5-episode arc at most. Yes, this villain screen alone shows that there's a lot to do with future, but we can already infer that at the very least, Jasper, the Lapis Lazulis, and the Aquamarine fusion are all part of one big plotline. And if that is just all in one arc, again, arcs in Steven Universe can just be 5 episodes. So would it be out of their possibility to say they would have at least 5 more episodes to introduce someone new? Now, if they have absolutely nothing to do with Gemkind, I can 100% agree with being resistant against that. But if it's a species tied to the Gemkind and expand on the diamonds a bit more, I feel like that'd be a warm welcome. The thing is really doing it right as opposed to having enough time to do it. If the introduction of different alien species can elaborate on the diamonds, then suddenly it wouldn't feel too jarring. And besides, they randomly just threw us aliens in Jungle Moon, but they weren't exactly intelligent, speaking humanoid life, and none of them became overarching villains. Unlike what this guy right here is poised to be. But that's why I'm saying I don't know. It can go either way. Heck, look how well the movie fleshed out Spinel, and it's just under 90 minutes. With Spinel's actual character moments and developments being sprinkled in between the rest of the Amnesia plotline, I just don't think we should discount the Criderverse's writing skills in the huge what-if situation where this beast is actually part of an alien race. But we'll touch into that theory at another time because I also have ideas for that. But for now, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. What do you think? Could Steven get corrupted? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments below or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at OstricVox. We're also on Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Tumblr at JANKYBONES, Twitter and Instagram at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Link in the description. Help Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please sort of like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OstricVox, signing out.